And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. And today we are recapping and instant reacting to the action from Week 11 of college football. Miami, Georgia both go down, and Florida is an embarrassment. All that coming up and more. Before we get to it, Sean, where can our listeners make some money on BetOnline?
Oh, do our listeners want to partake in the possible 8-hour-long bloodbath that I've been partaking in?
Nice.
If so, if you want to be a part of just watching teams not do what they should do, watching bets you're confident in, flail and flop around, or if you wanted to fade me this week, you would be sitting on a big pile of cash. BetOnline's where you want to do it. They got the earliest odds to in-game live betting. BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch all the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds. You know they got MMA. You know they got UFC, NHL, college basketball, NBA, most importantly, football, which I should know something about. Apparently I don't. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Sean, first crazy outcome of Week 11, 28-10. Ole Miss beats Georgia. It looked like Georgia was going to have a pretty handed hold over this game as they came out swinging. Early pressures on Jackson Dart, could not get the ball off. He gets banged up. Austin Simmons comes in. One assumes that the game was already over. Heck, I even thought that the game was already over. But Simmons marches down, scores. Jackson Dart comes back into the game. And that offense for Ole Miss started to take over. And the ineptitude for Georgia and their unwillingness to be aggressive caught up to them. Biggest thing for me talking about Ole Miss, though, they firmly re-enter the playoff picture. They have a very winnable stretch coming up in their schedule where if they finish out with this win on their resume, they have played themselves into the conversation. It's even going to bolster their case as one of the teams that they'll be fighting with is Tennessee, who has to face off with Georgia on the road, and presumably, I think many people would project, will lose that football game. But the biggest difference and the big thing that went against everybody's assumptions was that Lane Kiffin showed up and called a great game. He did not overthink things. Talked about that after the Kentucky game where they lost. Did not overthink, did not overcoach himself. He did exactly what they needed to do to move the ball down the field. And most importantly, that defensive line got after Carson Beck as he had another pretty rough game.
Yeah, I'll give credit to Ole Miss in this one. I didn't love Lane continuously running Jackson Dart after he had previously gotten an injury, but I've said it on the show, and I don't know why I forget it, but he proves it to me every single week. Jackson Dart might be the toughest player in college football because he gets lit the hell up week after week in that pocket, stands in the pocket, all the big SEC defensive linemen crashing down on him, and I don't see him come out of the game. I don't see him duck away from any of the smoke. Like it's about like I have to recognize it at this point. I don't see any other college quarterbacks that have this guy's grit and toughness when it comes to the ability of taking hits and mentally staying in a ball game. That dude is certifiably elite when it comes to that trait. Lane did a great job today, and we have been heavily critical of Lane Kiffin on this show about his disappearance when it comes to playing the big bad teams in the SEC. Didn't happen today. They made Georgia look super vulnerable. What an embarrassment from them. I know you have tons of thoughts, but Ole Miss, congrats. Yeah, you just beat them bad, and you beat them in the rain in poor weather conditions, which tells me one thing. You wanted it more than Georgia did, and you were more physical than Georgia was, which if those were two predictions that someone gave to me before the week that would happen, I'd spit in their face because that's crazy to assume that Georgia was going to get out-willed and out-physicaled, but they did for 4 straight quarters.
Remaining 2 games that Ole Miss has, they play Florida, I believe on the road, and then they get Mississippi State at home. So that is, and they've got a bye week coming up. So they are in prime pole position to make it to the playoff. I don't think that they're going to get into the SEC championship game as there is still a long list of teams that are ahead of them. It also currently has Georgia ranked ahead of them in the SEC standings, but there's no reason why, again, we're putting a lot of faith in here we already saw a Kentucky loss that they won't drop one of those games. But if they play like that, if their defensive line plays as aggressively as they did, there's zero chance that they're going to drop those remaining 2 games. I feel like them being in the playoff is a lock. Georgia needs to win out. The Tennessee game that they have remaining is going to be extremely crucial for their playoff hopes, but it feels like a 2-loss team is not going to be removed from the equation because of the big wins that they've had this year, especially that Texas victory. They're not going to lose to UMass. They're not going to lose to Georgia Tech, I would assume. Again, putting a little bit of faith in something that things have been so crazy this year. But Ole Miss, again, just to reiterate that, it seems like they're in a really good spot.
Well, if Carson Beck plays like he did today and the Georgia football team preserves the ball like the way that they did today, they can lose to anybody. All the fumbles, the awful interception from Carson Beck, the low passing yards, the lack of creativity on offense, I don't know. I yell in this microphone week in and week out about Georgia just running wide receiver screens all game, and they do it every single time. And God willing, Ole Miss finally said, we're gonna beat the blocks on the outside, and not let you get yardage, not just let you move the ball as if you could run the ball with this little gadget play. They stopped it, and Georgia kept doing it. They can't adapt this year. Mike Bobo isn't good at that. Carson Beck isn't good enough to pull them out of the depths. The running game isn't good enough. It wasn't there. They were getting bullied up front. This is an awful, awful game from Georgia because they should have beat Ole Miss. They knew Lane's dying to give one up to another top 5 team. His first one. Congratulations at Ole Miss. Way to be, finally getting it done. Georgia's so embarrassing. Top to bottom, awful game from them.
And their offensive line that was supposed to be a strength did not play well at all. They were supposed to be able to block
5 sacks.
Block these guys man on man. They shouldn't have needed extra protection or really need to slide in any particular direction to prepare for pressures, but they gave up a lot of easy pressures, a lot of quick pressures to Carson Beck. The other unexpected outcome, another upset today, Georgia Tech beats Miami 28-23. We've been saying a lot this year, and I've been saying a ton. Miami has been surviving off of a lot of luck. They felt like they were this year's Washington team. I still stand by that they are. They have closed out a lot of close games where they've started off super slow. And it felt like at halftime, that was what was going to happen. But they come out second half, and they can't get anything going. They just can't finish drives. They can't get the big plays that usually are produced by Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo and the rest of this offense. And even the craziest part, credit to Georgia Tech for rallying and making the plays that they did. They were able to completely remove, or not completely, but mostly remove the improvisational outcomes that Cam Ward was able to produce that led to their successes so far. I still think that they are the ACC's best representative and their best chance to win playoff games. But right now, it's certainly going to be called into question if they're going to be able to finish the year and win the ACC championship game if their defense plays like that again.
Yeah, look, Miami's been dying to lose one. We know this, and we know that when it comes to the Magic team, when it comes to the TCU, the Washington, recent teams of note that have been the Magic team to go onto the CFP, that there's going to be a loss mixed in there somewhere. There's going to be some weirdness sprinkled in along the lines. And if it wasn't going to be against Georgia Tech, it was going to happen when it was knotted up last week against Duke, or when Louisville dropped 45 on them, or the crazy win against Cal, or the crazy win against Virginia Tech. Like, those are all wins, and that's a great flotation device to keep yourself alive later on in the season for when you eventually drop one. And if it's Georgia Tech, so be it. Georgia Tech runs the ball well. They play really good defense. They got a great zone. So I could see now like why Miami would have struggled with it. Am I still surprised? Yes. Cam Ward is better than the Georgia Tech team accumulated on defense just by himself. But for the most part, I'm way less worried about this loss for Miami. Get it off the plate. You're done. You're done with the goofball losses. Just beat Wake Forest, beat Syracuse. You're seeded 1 in the ACC. I don't think you're going to get much challenge from Clemson. So I still have a good amount of confidence in Miami. This was just one that they needed to kind of get out the way, I think.
Now, this team did not fall to the potential upset situation that was on the table. That being Texas. They kicked the crap out of Florida, 49-17. to 17. And this thing was a boat race from the beginning, as it was just big play after big play. Trey Wisner has a long receiving touchdown. We watched Isaiah Bond take a screen to the house. So many big splash plays where the athletes for Texas showed up. My biggest thing for Texas here, Sean, is that if they can produce and reproduce that result, that was their best offensive performance this season against a Florida team that had shown signs of being competitive, they can be an SEC championship team and a national championship team. I don't know if they're not too boxed out right now to be in the SEC championship game off the top of my head, or what would require for them to be in the mix, but they could go on a playoff run if their offense can be that potent and if their defense can make those types of plays. I know that it's against Florida. A lot of people are going to try to downplay that, but if Quinn Ewers is that steady and confident and connecting with his guys and being that aggressive without holding on to the ball too long, they're hard to keep up with, and I would argue they're unstoppable.
Ewers 333-5 today. That's great. My pushback would be seeing Georgia today makes Florida playing competitive with them and still losing look worse. It does not make Florida. It doesn't give me any more faith in Florida that I had now going into the week. It's a good win by Texas. Still kind of waiting on a big team to emerge that isn't Oregon, because Oregon's great. Yeah, they're great, but I don't know if they have the true manpower to really do it all the way. Texas does. Texas needed a game like this. Texas needed to beat an SEC team that was flying kind of high. But Florida looked like they were playing for their coach today. And that is pretty reminiscent of what it's looked like under Napier since he's been at Florida. And now he's got that shiny new extension. Love seeing that.
No. Sorry, he didn't get an extension. That needs to be correct. He just was, it was affirmed that he was going to be returning for 2025. And a lot of people are now poking holes into the statement that was put out by Strickland, the athletic director, saying it didn't specify how long they were committing to him for, so they could still maybe fire him at the end of the season. That seems unlikely.
Oh, that means nothing to me then.
Right, but it basically was, he wasn't extended. He was, if he was extended, that would be freaking sane. He's got a few years left on his contract. The point is that they decided they're not going to fire him anytime soon, and that they would keep him likely for 2025.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he might be getting the boot come April. That's what I'm seeing. If you want to go out and try to be a big boss man bully against Georgia, and then the next week you just get pushed around by Texas, and then that's just, okay, we gave it our one shot of the year. That's not enough for me. It's just not going to do it for Florida. But Texas, go ahead, get another big win, get some confidence going before the final stretch of the year. I like it. It's a good Texas team, and I like when they play like a good Texas team.
Florida, though, needs to get brought up. You just mentioned there the news of the extension. I mean, that's freaking pathetic that's the performance that you put out there. Sorry, not the extension. You're confusing the shit out of me that you use that word. The news that Billy Napier is coming back.
The verbal retainment.
It was a big headline on Thursday when it came out, and a lot of people criticized it. Some tried to rationalize it. There's no rationalizing it after watching that game. I get it. You're down to your third string quarterback. For some reason, your third string quarterback is a walk-on that you brought in who was a backup at Yale of all kids that is on your roster, which you didn't have enough depth or talent at the position, that you weren't recruiting for enough over the past couple of years, that you couldn't have somebody else that was in the mix that could have played. But no, that was who you turned to. But most importantly, they looked lifeless. That was a pathetic showing by Florida. How can you, one, rely on that? How can you expect that eventually in the future is going to produce any sort of success? And on top of this, if you're Strickland, you better be counting your days. You're not going to be there for much longer if you really think that after you put confidence in Billy Napier and he decides to show up and lay the egg that he did, that anyone's going to take your word seriously. Florida is a joke. Freaking joke with the way that they showed up, or actually didn't show up in today's game.
You know the transfer portal's happening. You know you can't just stockpile quarterbacks on the roster anymore. Why are you knocking the kid from Yale getting a shot? That's
He
what they're
should
gonna
have
have to
stayed
pull
at
from.
Yale.
Oh,
he should have stayed at Yale. Now, I'm not saying because he's not good enough, but like, shit, you play at Yale and then you go to your corporate finance job and you're making $400,000 a year. I wish Why are you the third string in Florida?
Mr. DeLeone, this is Coach Wisniewski in Gainesville. We saw you've started 39 straight games at Rhodey. Would you want to come possibly
That's
give it a
at
shot?
Rhodey. That's at Rhode Island.
They're both FCS if we're pulling the umbrella.
You think that there's a comparison between Yale and Rhode Island in terms of academics?
Oh, no, not in academics. I'm talking about from a football standpoint. Who cares about the academics?
If you're going to Yale to play football and you're the backup, you clearly care about academics.
Nah, means nothing.
Whatever. All right, let's move on to the last game before we tape the remainder of the show. Whoa, we behind the curtain. Whoa, who said that? Whoa. Colorado 41, Texas Tech 27. Colorado, a little slow to get going. Some folks were maybe poking at Colorado, saying that they couldn't get back into this game and that they were looking slow. Not so fast. That offense picked up speed with ferocity, and they smoked Texas Tech in the second half. The Texas Tech tried to climb back in. Their comeback attempt was completely squashed. And credit to the Buffaloes. They played their asses off. Shedeur Sanders had 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, of course, Travis Hunter, 99 yards and a score. Wester had 82 yards and a touchdown, and then Shepard also had 79 and a touchdown. The biggest thing, and they've got a little bit of Washington, Miami-esqueness in them where they might have a little bit of a slow start against a weak team, and Texas Tech was a weak team. I don't want to hear anyone try to rationalize that. They were one of the worst defenses in the country coming into this game, but after the slow start, their offense could score so quickly, and when they do it, it builds so much momentum that they're back on top. Their defensive line is underrated and it's smothering, that they can get the stops, the turnovers, the sacks to get themselves back into the game. I think this Colorado team, now that Iowa State lost, has a very legit shot of going to the Big 12 championship game and going to the playoff potentially.
They're at least making it more exciting and exceeding my expectations this late into the year. It's nice to have you back on the bandwagon, by the way. Welcome back.
Don't act like I was not on the bandwagon.
I'm just welcoming.
I have
even if you were.
I have picked Colorado, and I thought that I was a jinx for Colorado. I picked Colorado to beat Nebraska. I picked Colorado to beat Kansas State. The times that they've had big matchups and I've picked them, they've lost. So I've merely, after those losses, I have pointed out that I keep getting burned. But finally, when I picked them in a betting pick and also an outcome of this game, that it finally cashed.
Take it easy with that finger. You're waving it a little recklessly. I was just saying, if this was the Snowpiercer train, I was, that's classy. I'd be in the front of the caboose if we're on the Colorado Snowpiercer train, and you're in the back eating the cockroach gel.
Public about any support for Colorado.
Look, I've been SCO Buffs for a while now. But here's the thing about SCO Buffs. SCO Buffs had a SCO bad time on the offensive line today. Gave up 3 sacks to Texas Tech, 8 tackles for loss. The offensive line still isn't good for Colorado. Shedeur Sanders just
real supporter of Colorado just crapping all over him.
I'm sorry.
Crapping all over him. Get him! Get him! Get
him! I'm just pointing out a glaring issue with this team. Shedeur Sanders has an impeccable release time. It's so lightning quick that it gets the ball moving down the field faster than it would have.
Yeah.
Every other quarterback in the Big 12, if they're playing for Colorado, would have double the sacks, double the incompletions. They'd be in hell. But because he's so talented, the offense could keep moving and thriving. Colorado offensive line, part 2, if the shoe fits your bad, then wear it. 60 rushing yards. I hate that. I really do. Move the ball on the ground. I thought that
they were going to run the ball a little bit better.
They can't do it. They are just going to air raid you, and they're going to try to let Travis Hunter lock down half the field on defense. Let the mean defensive line. They're working with Warren Sapp. I like that. I like his mohawk. I like his energy. The defense is doing well, or better than expected, I should say. So the trajectory is there. And at this point in the season, I wouldn't try to change anything up. I would just say, this is who we are, folks. We are an air 'em out team that's going to have to win shootouts, and this is how we're going to ride. I don't want anything different this late in the season.
All right, we're recording after the fact, after what was an abysmal, disgusting performance by LSU, 42-13. They were at home. At home. Garrett Nussmeier, 27 of 42, 239 yards and a touchdown, 2 interceptions. We're going to get to Nussmeier. Jalen Milroe plays his ass off, runs all past this LSU team. 185 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Look, Sean, plain and simple. Brian Kelly, Notre Dame fans, we tried to warn LSU fans. We tried to tell LSU fans that this man, Brian Kelly, no matter what amount of resources you give him, you thought that there was this massive resource gap between Notre Dame and LSU. There's really not. Give him any situation where he has to meet expectations to compete with a big-time opponent to build a trajectory to compete for a national title. He won't freaking do it. He won't. He finds new and creative ways to shit his pants in any opportunity that he has. And tonight's performance against Alabama is the perfect example of that. They played like ass. They got outcoached by a coach who is in his first year in the SEC, a guy from the West Coast who played college ball and coached in South Dakota and was at Washington, that all the LSU fans clamored about, would not succeed in the SEC and got beat at home by him in his first year. That was a game he was supposed to win. It is abominable that Brian Kelly continues to just put out stinker performances like this.
Yeah, this was awful because not only does it enhance all the rhetoric around Alabama, it wasn't even exciting to watch. It was just really miserable play from LSU. I really hope listeners have been in on the bit when I'm saying nussy, that I'm saying it ironically, because
sounds so inappropriate.
Yeah,
okay,
almost like I'm doing a bit.
I don't like how you just said yeah.
Almost like I'm doing a bit over here. But yeah, he is not a first-round quarterback. I hate that this quarterback class is probably going to deem him as such, which is unfortunate.
I'll let you finish, then we're going to revisit that in a quick second.
I've said it all year about this LSU team. The only thing that gets me up and fired up about them is Kyron Lacey, because he makes spectacular catches. It's wide receiver university. I will always give them their credit from that standpoint. Everything else this year has been shoddy. Quarterback play, shoddy. Running back play, shoddy. Will Campbell, great bright spot on the offensive line. The other 4, shoddy. Defense, porous. They let Jalen Milroe run for 4 touchdowns and 185 yards on them tonight. Unacceptable. If we're bringing in Brian Kelly, we're going to be pounding our fist on the desk, levitating water bottles up like we're in Harry Potter with our wizard wand. He's a ridiculous person. He's been looking like someone that would get cracked by the SEC from when he first touched down, and now we're years later, and it still looks like the SEC is cracking him. He has not adjusted to the water temperature. He is just the fish that cannot get out of the plastic bag. It's the bag sitting in the tank, but he can't truly mingle because he can't win the big game or make a real statement at LSU.
Nussmeier, for me, you brought up Nussmeier. Like, I don't like to be like overtly critical of players, but to touch on like the angle that you brought, like, I'm not going to sit here, and there's a lot of people, I tweeted this out. There's a lot of people commenting under what I tweeted that was quite benign. It's just a purely an evaluation of like, is he a first rounder? A lot of people taking shots at the kid, and I don't think that's fair. I think that he's somebody who needs to come back for another year, if it's at LSU, if it's at another program. He has the tools, he has the traits, and he has the ballsiness to succeed as a quarterback. Like, there's a lot of guys that we see that have the same build, frame, all that stuff like him, and don't know how to use it, aren't willing, and are very risk averse. If you gave him time and a different system, a different opportunity, or just one more year at LSU, it could work out. But at the current moment, there's way too many draft pundits, way too many big draft pundits that I have seen that have put this dude in the first round. He's not a first rounder. He's not. There are mock drafts out there right now that put this dude in the first round. He does not have the decision making. This is what, like, to paint the picture. He'll march down the field like he did on that one drive. He'll get to the 5-yard line. He'll throw a pick in the end zone.
Yeah.
That is not. And I keep comparing him to Daniel Jones. He really is Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones did the same thing every single year and did it early in his career. And we were all too blind and hyped up on the traits and the tools and his size and his frame and all that crap, where first couple of years it's like, wow, like, look what he could be. Look at what he could be. And then when it became the norm where he'd make big play, horrible play, not like bad play, like just backbreaking, ruins the game over, you're done, there's no getting momentum back, over. Then it's like, oh, all right, well, what do we do now? Oh, I guess we weren't really going to get that good version of him. That was just him. And I think that there is potential for Nussmeier to improve. He's got extra eligibility. There is. I'm not going to like indict the kid and say that he's done. I don't like to do that with prospects unless they're just physically not built to succeed. He is. But at the current moment, no, he can. And maybe next year is a good year. We have to see.
I didn't know he had another year. He should stay for another year.
I think he does.
How could he be Daniel Jones if Carson Beck is Daniel Jones?
I've changed my mind. Carson Beck's not Daniel. I said the Daniel Jones thing. Everybody's Daniel Jones. Every bad quarterback is Daniel Jones. Carson Beck is somebody else, and I think he's got a little more Derek Carr in him than he does.
Oh,
I think that's a good one. I think him and Derek Carr is a good comparison. Let me look up his
Carson Beck is because he's so tall and wiry. I have to think of a tall, wiry quarterback. I would say all the bad traits of Trevor Lawrence, maybe, if we could pile those into a quarterback.
But Trevor Lawrence coming
maybe
out
he was more mobile.
He
was more mobile than Beck.
His peak, though, is just like on another level. Okay, so his freshman season was 2021, 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
this is his 4th year. So he technically can have 2 more years of eligibility because he's got a COVID year.
Yeah, that would work for him. Stay another year.
He's a redshirt junior. I mean, I would do the Bo Nix thing. Seriously, he could be Bo Nix. He could hop in the portal and go. He's not going to go to Oregon because they've got, oh my God, what's dude's name that came over from UCLA?
Oh,
actually, forget that. He's not going to, it doesn't matter. He's not going to go to Oregon, but you could be Bo Nix. You 100% could be Bo Nix, where everybody's so mad at you and your fan base hates you, but you believe in yourself, you go somewhere else and you succeed. But this overwillingness to place him in the first round, like, it needs to be stopped. I think it's going to be done after today. I really don't think that we're going to have to do any more of this.
Dante Moore, the quarterback.
Dante Moore,
yes.
That's who it was.
I guess briefly, while we were on this game, I have to ask you a question, and I need you to be serious. I'm not trying to bait you into anything.
Of course.
You're a little ahead of your skis on this whole Jalen Milroe thing with one of your tweets from today.
Why? Stop it.
It just makes me, I'm just saying.
Okay, first of all, the NFL really likes Jalen Milroe, so this isn't just like my own perspective. The NFL actually really likes Jalen Milroe. I'm not just throwing that out there aimlessly, like, Jalen Milroe, he looked really good today. What is your issue with him? Because I see a premier athlete that has improved his decision making and does have the arm talent to attack downfield. He can be Jaden Daniels. He can be Lamar Jackson.
He's not.
Why?
He's not Jaden Daniels because he doesn't throw it like Jaden Daniels. He doesn't run it consistently like Lamar Jackson. He's very spotty when he turns it on. When he's on, and he's a great college quarterback. But your wording here can be a legit star with the right coaching staff in the NFL.
Yeah.
No.
Why are you automatically shutting that down?
The star bar is reserved for stars. He could probably make a team in the NFL.
Oh my God!
In the NFL.
You're telling me I'm over my skis. You're way off base on this,
brother. He doesn't inspire me. He just doesn't.
The man ran for 185 and 4 touchdowns.
He threw for 109 and 0
because they didn't even need to throw the ball.
I want my quarterback to be able to throw the ball. I don't want him running all around all the time.
He went 12 for 18. That's tremendous passing efficiency. They didn't have to throw the ball because LSU's run defense was dookie.
I understand.
Play the game plan.
Yeah. You have running backs. That's great.
Stop.
I'm just telling you, man. I didn't like the wordage that you said star. Yeah, he's your best athlete. That's fine. He had some good offensive plays, ran for 4 touchdowns. I'm not taking that away from him. But you saying that he's a star is going to hurt him in the NFL when he's not a star and he struggles.
Would you have been more willing to take Bryce Young in the first round?
Than Jalen Milroe? Yes, because he actually showed me some very nice, accurate ball placement. He was a legitimate Heisman candidate. What are you talking about? He won a national championship.
He also did win a Heisman.
Yeah. Are you? Come on. But
if we're talking tool for tool, who could be sculpted into a better starting NFL quarterback? Bryce Young was supposed to be this high floor guy that was going to be super accurate and consistent.
Yeah.
And he hasn't panned out.
That's tough. It's tough. But I'd rather take that with a guy where I've actually seen it. I've seen the winning. I've seen the caliber of quarterback play. I've seen the total takeover of the game from the quarterback specific position.
The games that
not the you were quarterback improvisational position.
You were trying to throw at me the Vandy loss, and that's irrelevant because their losses have not been a result of his performance. It's been the team's performance, penalties, missed assignments on blocking assignments. That's the issues of the times that they've lost this year. He would step. I'm not even the only person who said this. I think it was.
We've seen the sacks. Some
I'm
of the
pretty
sacks
sure
he's
Dane
taken.
Brugler, who's the Athletics NFL draft analyst, said the same thing. I'm not the only person doing this.
Trying to make a star also. It's not that he's not the guy to do it with. I would say stick with Cam Ward in this draft class. But now it's late in the season. We're trying to make Jalen Milroe a thing again. I'm not getting invested.
A thing.
He hasn't really been a thing the last couple of games. He hasn't really been that dude. Give me a break.
I think you're completely off base on this one.
I could be off base. I just know what I watch. And he's a good college football quarterback.
Yeah.
He's good at Alabama. He can run the ball very well. But if we're talking about the quarterback position as a whole, I'm not saying he can't go to the NFL. I just didn't like your wording when you said he could be a star. Because he's not a star.
God forbid I project the kid has tools to be a tremendous player.
You didn't say that. You said he would be a star with the right coach.
Yeah, tremendous player means he could be a star. He could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Star means
he could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
What are you doing right now?
God forbid I
What are you doing?
No.
Are you trying to get under my skin here?
Not saying like at the current moment he would step in. He could develop into 5-6 years into his career into a top 10 quarterback.
What is it, 2024? I'll give you till 2030.
2031 that he's a top 10 quarterback.
2030. All right. $1,000.
Las Vegas Raiders starting quarterback.
You said it for the Raiders? You wanted to be a top 10 guy?
I'm posting a mock draft on Monday and he's going to the Raiders.
What are you talking about?
All right, that's going to be it. Before we go off on a tangent. Oh, God. All right, at Joe DeLeone, at Sarensen Radio, at Hack City Pod. It's late. Before we just go off the rails here, we'll talk to you folks later. We'll be back with the NFL show and the FCS show on Sunday and Monday.